Next slide. Next side of this assessment picture. So we've looked at your, sorry, I was going to say cash flow needs. This is a useless financial term, but we looked at your like month-to-month, year-to-year money needs, what you need to spend. The other side of that financial assessment is, what do you have as far as, knowingly in finance, we would call it assets and liabilities. But what we're really talking about is just, what do you have in your accounts? What do you have on the credit side, on the debt side? I'm starting to put some numbers and look at a few of these things. So on this slide, it kind of runs you through some of the things to take a look at. And so some of these are pretty simple, but I know that simple to write down doesn't mean simple to look at. Looking at your bank account, like Christine was saying, is something that is very stressful for lots of people. Some of you might not know what's in your bank account. It's not an easy thing to look at these, but it's one of those small things that you can do, as small as far as time, to start connecting yourself to your finances a little bit more. So the first thing to take a look at is, what do you have in cash? So what I mean by that is in your checking account, or literally in cash, if you've got a drawer full of cash somewhere, just saying, what do I have there? Second stop, if you have savings accounts in any way. So any kind of general savings account, anything in there, doesn't matter if it was earmarked for taxes at one point or what it was for, just start saying, what do I have? What did I think that money was for? Just so, because that matters as well. I know that one of the big stresses that some people who had some money set aside for something during this pandemic had was, but it wasn't for this. I was saving for X, and now I have to use that to live on. And there's a grief around that as well. But just for now, we're not making choices. We're just assessing where you're at. So saying, okay, this is what I have savings-wise. The third big stop is in the world of investments. And so when I talk about investments, I'm talking about things like RRSPs, Registered Retirement Savings Plans, tax-free savings accounts, TFSA, or something called non-registered, which is basically everything else. If it's not one of the kind of more specialty accounts, it's just a non-registered account. Looking at them and saying, first of all, what's in them? There might be some of those accounts that you never look at. And we're not making choices again of saying, I need to pull out of there or not. But what we want to say is, before we make those choices, what's in them? What's the dollar amount first? But the other side of things that I think people don't often look at is, what is actually in them? So something that we say a little bit, I don't want to get too much on a tangent, is that like with RRSPs, people kind of think about them as investments in themselves, but they're not. It's like an RRSP is like a basket that holds other things. So you can have cash in there, you can have a mutual fund, you can have like a share of Google. And it kind of matters when we're trying to make decisions what you have in that. So just even going to whatever profile it is, opening it up and saying, what do I have? What are the words that I'm seeing here? Do I see something that says balanced mutual fund? Okay, cool. So it's a mutual fund. Balanced means that it's kind of like in that middle risk category. So that's good to know. Is it something that says super conservative mutual fund? Is it something that says cash? Just looking at saying, what do I have in these funds? Because when you're making decisions, we'll talk about in another video, that information will be helpful to know kind of the risk reward for these things. So taking a look at that, seeing what information you can gather. And then the fourth big category is looking at the debt side of things. So first, I want you to look at your debt as part of what you have left. So let's ignore for the brief minute the balances, and let's talk about what kind of credit you have available. So if you have a line of credit or a credit card, how much room do you have? Do you have another couple $1,000s on a credit card? Not saying you have to use it, but just knowing that it's there. Do you have $5,000 on a line of credit or a home equity line of credit? Great. Just writing those things down. What do you have on that side? Once you've got those kind of things, the resources you can access, then you can start writing down some of the tough numbers, some of the debt numbers. And these are hard things to look at specifically. Writing down, what are the credit card balances right now? What are the line of credit balances right now? What are the amounts that you owe in deferred rent? What are the amounts you owe in utility payments that were lowered, but now they're going to get raised again? Just starting to say, okay, what are these numbers? And I'm sure that's a moment where the anxiety might be rising a little bit. They're really hard numbers to share, and they're hard numbers to even look at sometimes. But try to kind of get them written down so you have something to look at.
Now, I'm just going to add a little bit of flavor here for us to help us with our lowering, just some grounding, just give you a little bit more tools for your toolkit. The reason why I'm interjecting here and there with this, because what works for your best friend may not work for you. And you want a bunch of tools in that, that toolkit so that you can draw from them at any time. So this one is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's a senses grounding exercise. So it's very simple. You can do it anywhere. Nobody will know that you're doing it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick 5 things that you can see. Maybe it's the carpet. Maybe it's the pen. Maybe you're outside and it's the clouds. So you're going to pick 5. The next thing is going to be 4 things you can touch. It could be my hair. I'm touching it. The ground, the table. And then, so that's 4 things. Now you're going to pick 3 things that you can hear. Sound of people talking or walking. What about if you can feel your belly growling? That counts. Birds chirping, again, if you're outside. The next thing you want to do are 2 things that you can smell. Now this one can be a little bit tricky if you're not in a stimulating environment. So if that's the case, you want to, and you can't, automatically sniff something out. Again, sniff your hair. I've done that. That's something that you're smelling. Again, all of these things are grounding you. Maybe you're smelling something in nature. How about check in to see how your deodorant is working today? And then the last thing you want to do is 1 thing you can taste. Maybe that's the coffee you just had. If you really can't taste anything and you have a piece of gum, put that piece of gum in your mouth. So again, these things you can do, nobody else will notice that you're doing them. They're definitely going to ground you, keep you focused. So it's a tool for your toolbox that I hope you can try. If it doesn't work, that's okay. There's other ones. At the end of this video, I am going to show you a list of other techniques that you can try to use. I mean, dancing, cranking up the tunes, coloring. There's a bunch of stuff. Get a great song list that you can use. All of these are just different things that you can draw from when you're feeling a little bit of stress or anxiety. When you're trying to figure out these tough numbers, looking at your financial situation, looking at what's going on and how you're going to move forward.
I love that. And I love just the encouragement as well to put yourself into these exercises financially as well. I know people that like the idea of writing these things out with pencil, crayon, or markers, because it's not the same. It doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be pen. Sometimes writing things in pencil is easier. Use who you are to kind of take ownership of these things. These little things do matter. You don't have to use red and green for debts and assets. Use whatever colors you want. Color things in. Draw the next 4 months and draw the things that you think are going to happen, and then look at numbers later. Use who you are and try to find yourself in the kind of assessing of these tools. One exercise that I will recommend as well as we kind of come back to the financial side, as you're looking at your debt numbers, if you have some debt to look at, I encourage you to try to reframe a little bit what you see. Debt can so often come, as Christine was saying at the beginning, with this sense of shame and this guilt. And the way we talk about debt in the world these days is so one-sided and so unfair. If you have debt, you're a bad person, is how it's equated so often, and that's just not true. Debt is a tool. Debt is a tool often for situations that were exactly like we're in. Debt is a tool for unplannable situations. And the story around these debt balances is not just one thing. And no matter where it came from, I encourage you to start looking at it and, if you can, thank it for something. Look at it and say, hi, credit card balance, if you don't mind talking your credit card balance. Thank you so much for allowing me to feed my family for the last 5 months. Thank you. It doesn't take away the cost. It doesn't take away the fact that, yes, it has to get paid back or that it has 20% interest. But let's add some nuance to this so that maybe you can decrease the amount of guilt that you're carrying around and shame that you're carrying around. People are using debt right now. They are. People will continue to use debt. This is a fact of where we're at. It's not a shame. It's not a failure. It's just how we are. So try to write down those numbers so that you have something, so that you have problems to kind of look at and kind of apply to kind of some of the questions going forward, but also attempt a bit of a reframe there. And then what you have, once you kind of spend time with these two exercises, you have a sense of what you need from month to month, an average, including those yearly things. And you have a sense of what you have as far as assets and kind of some of the things you need to pay back. This is you financially assessed. The one element that Christine's going to talk about a little bit is expanding this balance sheet to include things that are not necessarily financial. That's only some of the assets that you might have. So looking at that side of things a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. And these are, there's caremongering groups. There's, even just these grounding exercises that I'm talking about, being mindful, using meditation apps. There's journaling, there's coloring, there's, just incorporating other elements to help you stay grounded and help you stay focused. We'll link a bunch of resources at the end of this video that you are more than welcome to explore. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Chris. We are resources for you to help you through this. We'll put up our contact information at the end. And yes, I hope that this video has been helpful. I hope it wasn't too anxiety provoking. I hope you learned something. I know I have. I really, really, really enjoyed the piece of looking at your debt in a different way, and that this isn't, we need to think it, because really, yes, it's scary to be seeing the debt load increasing, but did it keep you housed? Did it keep your family fed? Those are really important as well. And to say, well, I used it for what it's supposed to be used for, and not, create such a negative connotation associated with that, kind of puts you in a different mind space, at least for me. Again, it doesn't negate, like you said, the numbers, but it helps balance things out. So, yeah, so thank you. I don't know, Chris, if you'd like to say anything else.
No, there's so many things going on right now. Everybody's life is different. We're having to face everything that's layered against the backdrop of this pandemic. Part of this is financial. Part of this is not. It's complicated and it's hard, and it feels hard because it is hard. And there's so many really difficult, unsolvable things. Christine and I are faced constantly with talking with people that there are no easy answers for. Somehow I find that it sometimes helps to know that when I'm trying to find a solution, that there's not this easy solution that I don't know about, that I'm failing to find. This is a really, really hard time for many, many of you. And so do what you can. And I encourage you to reach out for help, like Christine said, if that's something that you're capable of. If we're not the right people to help with, we'll definitely do our best to connect you to the right people to help. And we'll try to get through this as a community together. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.